I'm 33 now, and until last week, I hadn't stepped foot in my childhood home in over a decade. It's not like I was estranged from my mom or anything. We talk on birthdays, holidays, and the occasional check-in, but I'd moved out for college at 18 and never really looked back. The house was old, creaky, kind of ugly, if I'm being honest. Nothing special. But it was ours. My dad passed away when I was 12, and my mom raised me solo after that. She worked 2 jobs just to keep that house. So when I found out she'd sold it behind my back, I was stunned. She didn't tell me until the paperwork was already signed. Just dropped it casually over the phone like it was nothing. Oh, by the way, I sold the house. Closing's next Tuesday. No warning. No heads up. Just done. I asked her why she hadn't told me sooner, and all she said was, "You never liked that place anyway." That wasn't the point. I didn't love the house, no. But it was still home. A part of my history. A part of my dad. It felt wrong that it was just gone. Worse, the buyers were already planning to tear it down. Bulldoze the whole lot and build something modern, according to my mom. Her tone was so casual, like she was talking about replacing a microwave. I asked her if I could go back one last time, just to walk through it, grab anything I might have left in the attic or basement. She paused, like she hadn't expected me to care, but then she said sure, just make it quick. The new owners were taking possession in 3 days. I flew in the next morning. And that's when everything started to spiral. I got to the house just after noon. It looked the same as I remembered, peeling paint, the warped porch steps, the same old wind chimes clinking out their eerie little tune by the front window. But something felt off, like the air itself had gone stale. I told myself I was being dramatic, but still, I hesitated before stepping inside. Everything was boxed up. My mom had clearly cleaned the place out. No furniture, no curtains, nothing left but a few old nails in the walls and the faint smell of mothballs. It felt gutted, like the soul had been scraped out of the house. I started in my old room. Empty. Then the kitchen. Same story. The garage held a few cobwebs and a rusted can of paint thinner, but nothing else. Then I remembered the attic. When I was a kid, I used to hide up there. Not because it was cozy far from it, but because it was mine. My dad had put down a few old blankets, installed a single bulb on a pull string, and told me it could be my secret clubhouse. After he passed, I used to sit up there and read or talk to him like he was listening. So I headed up the narrow hallway and pulled the string to the attic door. And that's when I froze. The door was nailed shut. Not locked. Not jammed. Nailed. Shut. There were 6 thick, rusted nails hammered across the frame, messy, uneven, like someone had done it in a rush. It didn't make any sense. The attic had never been locked before. I ran my hand across the wood, confused, and that's when I saw it. My name. Scratched into the door, right above the handle. Not carved deep, but clearly written, like someone had used a knife or scissors. Leo. I hadn't been here in over 10 years. I didn't do this. And my mom sure as hell never mentioned anything about the attic being sealed off. I stood there for a solid minute, my pulse rising. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I grabbed a hammer from the garage and started prying those nails loose. Because whatever was behind that door, I had to know. It took longer than I expected to pull those nails out. My hands were shaking, not because it was hard, but because something about the whole thing felt wrong. Like I was opening something that was supposed to stay closed. Once the last nail dropped to the floor, I hesitated. The air behind the door felt different. Still. Heavy. I opened it slowly and climbed up, one creaky step at a time, into a cloud of warm, stale dust. The attic looked exactly like I remembered, except smaller. That's always the case with childhood places. What once felt big and mysterious was now just a low-ceilinged crawl space with warped wooden beams and the faint smell of mildew. Most of the stuff up there was junk. Old Christmas decorations, torn boxes, a yellow box fan that probably hadn't worked since 1999. I recognized a few of my childhood toys shoved in a milk crate, action figures, a Game Boy with dead batteries, a cracked snow globe from a school trip. But one box stood out. It was sitting near the far wall, tucked in the corner like it had been shoved there in a hurry. Everything else in the attic was coated in layers of dust, but not this. It looked clean. Untouched. Like someone had put it there recently. It was plain, just a cardboard moving box sealed with brown packing tape. But scrawled across the top in thick black marker were 3 words. Do not open. No name. No date. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I thought twice, but the truth is, I didn't. My curiosity had already bulldozed over my common sense. I tore the tape open. And the first thing I saw was a photograph. Of me. It was a Polaroid. Not one I recognized. I was maybe 10 years old in it, sitting in the front yard with my bike. But here's the thing, we didn't own a Polaroid camera. Not back then. All our family photos were taken on those cheap little disposables my mom used to buy at the pharmacy. This one was grainy, dark around the edges. It looked like it had been taken from across the street, maybe behind a car or tree. Like whoever snapped it didn't want to be seen. I told myself maybe my mom took it. Maybe it was just some old memory I'd forgotten. But then I pulled out the next one. Same thing, me again. Only this time I was in my bedroom, sitting by the window, drawing. The photo was clearly taken from outside the house. I was alone in the frame, focused, unaware. Then another. I was walking home from school. Another, I was sleeping. And then another, still me, still young, but in each one, I looked completely unaware that someone was watching me. The photos kept going. A small stack. Maybe 20 in total. All taken from angles that made it clear I hadn't been posing. Some of them had dates scrawled on the back in shaky handwriting. One even had the word close underlined 3 times. My skin went cold. These weren't family photos. These weren't cute memories. Someone had been watching me. For years. I dropped the last photo and stepped back from the box, heart hammering in my chest. But I wasn't done. I had to know what else was in there. I pulled back the layer of newspaper beneath the photos. And found a bundle of letters, each one addressed to my mother. There were maybe a dozen letters total. Each one folded neatly, stacked in order, no envelopes. The paper was thin and yellowed, like it had been handled too many times. Some were dated as far back as 1997. The handwriting was sharp and rushed. No greeting. No sign-off. Just long blocks of writing that felt like rants, obsessions, even. But what froze me was the content. They were about me. The first one talked about my first day of kindergarten, what I was wearing, how I looked nervous but didn't cry. The writer mentioned the color of my backpack and the name of my teacher, even the toy I took for show and tell. The second described a bike ride through the cul-de-sac and how he waved at me today. That was me. I didn't know it yet, but all the letters were about me. The third one was worse. It mentioned how I'd fallen off the swing at recess, scraped my elbow, and tried not to cry until I got home. My mom never told anyone about that. She bandaged me up and we watched cartoons. It was our thing. I kept reading, and with each letter, the tone changed, became darker. He wrote things like he's starting to notice me and I think she's keeping him from me. That's when I realized, this guy wasn't just watching me. He thought he knew me. Like I belonged to him. And he kept blaming my mom, saying she was the one poisoning me against him, keeping him out. One of the last letters had a line that made my blood run cold. If she won't let me in, I'll find another way. The attic is mine now. He'll come looking eventually. I stepped away from the box like it had burned me. My whole body was trembling. Who the hell was this man? Why did my mom keep these letters? And why didn't she ever tell me? I looked back at the box, back at the photo on top, the one of me sleeping. That wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was that the letters stopped after 2003. And that was the year my mom nailed the attic shut. I didn't go back downstairs right away. I sat there in the attic for a while, just staring at that final letter, reading the same sentence over and over again. The attic is mine now. I didn't know what to do with it. This box full of surveillance photos and letters from a man I'd never heard of. A man who knew everything about my childhood. A man who, according to his own words, had been inside my life for years without ever being seen. I took the whole box with me. Carried it down the ladder like it was radioactive. My hands were trembling the entire time. I went straight to my rental car, put the box in the trunk, and drove to my mom's place without calling. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. But when she saw my face, and probably the sweat and dust all over my shirt, her expression changed fast. I didn't say anything. I just held up one of the photos. She didn't even ask what it was. She just said, "You opened the attic." Not a question. Just flat. I asked her who the man was. At first, she tried to brush it off, said it was a misunderstanding, something from a long time ago. But when I pressed her, she finally sat down and gave me the truth. When I was around 5, a man started showing up near our house. Not doing anything, just walking by, sometimes standing across the street. My mom thought it was weird but harmless at first. Until she started noticing him everywhere. Grocery store, library, even outside my school. She told me she went to the police. Multiple times. But back then, there wasn't much they could do unless he physically tried something. And he never did. He was careful. He never approached me. Never spoke to me. Never crossed onto our property. He just watched. And then the letters started. My mom was terrified, but there was nothing the police could charge him with. They looked into it, sure, but without a name or address, it went nowhere. The man had no record. No ID. He was just a ghost with a pen. When I asked why she never told me, why she never warned me, she just looked down and said, "You were a kid. I didn't want you living in fear." And then she told me something that made my skin crawl. He was never caught. No arrest. No restraining order. No real lead. She just waited for him to go away. And apparently, one day, he did. But not before leaving everything in the attic. I didn't sleep that night. After hearing everything from my mom, I couldn't get the images out of my head. All those years of me playing in the yard, reading by the window, sleeping in my room, and someone was out there. Watching. Waiting. Writing letters to my mom like I was some kind of property. I stayed in a hotel near the airport. I had planned to fly home the next day. After all, the house was gone. The attic had been emptied. My mom had said the man disappeared over 20 years ago. But I couldn't shake it. At 2:30 a.m., I pulled out the box again. I wanted to take one last look, maybe find a clue in those letters that would explain how this man had gotten so close without being caught. I opened the lid. But something was off. The photos were still there, but not in the same order. The one I'd put on top, the photo of me sleeping, was gone. I flipped through everything. Dug into the bottom of the box. Checked the floor, the bed, the chair. Nothing. I know I packed it. I know it was there when I left my mom's. But now it was just missing. I checked the door. Still locked from the inside. Then the bathroom. The closet. The hallway. Nothing. That photo didn't just vanish. Someone had been in my room. And that meant only one thing. He's not gone. He's watching again. And this time? He knows I remember him. The hotel had one of those little mail drop-off areas near the front desk. I only noticed it when I went down to grab coffee the next morning, half out of it, heart still pounding from the night before. That's when the concierge called out my name. Said there was something for me. I hadn't ordered anything. I wasn't expecting mail. But she handed me a small padded envelope, plain, brown, with no return address. Just my name, written in all caps in black marker. Same handwriting as the letters. I didn't open it there. I went back up to my room and locked the door. Then I opened it. There was no note inside. No message. Just one thing. A photo. It was taken from outside my hotel window. The same window I'd kept the curtains half closed because the AC unit made it stick. I hadn't thought twice about it. But in the photo? I was asleep. The same exact clothes. Same position. Same bed. It was taken the night before. I dropped it. My head was spinning, my stomach in knots. I felt like I was falling, like the floor wasn't even there. I stumbled to the window, yanked the curtain all the way back, and looked outside. Nothing. Just the parking lot. A few trees. A car I didn't recognize sitting under the one flickering street lamp. But he had been there. He was watching me. Again. I should have gone to the police right then. But I didn't. Because when I flipped the photo over, there was one word written on the back. Soon. I didn't sleep again. I couldn't. I sat in that hotel chair all night, staring at the photo. The word soon burned into my brain like a threat and a promise at the same time. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. If he wanted me scared, hidden in a hotel room, waiting, I wouldn't give him that. I was done being watched. I needed answers. I needed to see this through. So I waited. Around 6 a.m., I saw movement outside. The same car, an old navy blue sedan with no plates, pulled out from under the street lamp and crept through the lot. I grabbed my bag, the photo, and I followed. At first, I kept a distance. I wasn't trying to be subtle, honestly, I hoped he'd notice. Maybe that was stupid. But I was too far into this to stop now. We drove for nearly 30 minutes. Out of the city. Into the suburbs. Then past the suburbs. Farmland. Winding roads. No other cars in sight. Then, just before a sharp bend in the road, he turned down a dirt path and disappeared into the trees. I followed. The road was narrow, full of potholes and branches. It felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. And then, suddenly, I knew where I was. It was an old cabin. Long abandoned. My dad used to bring me here when I was little. We'd fish, build campfires, roast marshmallows. But after he died, we never came back. The cabin had collapsed years ago. Or so I thought. But now? It was standing. Rebuilt. Reinforced. Same spot, same clearing, but the place had been restored. Like someone had been living there. And parked just outside, covered in dirt and dead leaves, was that same navy blue sedan. He'd been here all along. Not some stranger lurking in shadows. He'd come back to the one place I'd never think to look. Until now. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, maybe more. Watching the cabin. Watching the stillness. No movement. No sound. Just the wind pushing dead leaves across the clearing. Part of me wanted to turn around, call the police, walk away and let them handle it. But I didn't. I needed to see. The front door was slightly open. Inside, it was dim, the only light coming from slats in the boarded-up windows. Dust floated in the air like ash. But the place wasn't empty. There was furniture. A single mattress on the floor. Shelves with canned food. Tools lined up perfectly on a workbench. A desk in the corner with a corkboard above it. That's where I went. The board was covered in photos. Newspaper clippings. Notes scribbled on torn paper. And in the center, my face. Photos of me as a child. Me last week. Me yesterday. But something else caught my eye. One of the papers was older, fragile, folded neatly. It was a birth certificate. My birth certificate. Only the name under father wasn't the man I'd grown up knowing. It was his. The same name from the letters. He wasn't a stranger. He was my biological father. I stumbled back, heart pounding. My mom never told me. She never once mentioned another man. But it made sense now. The letters. The obsession. The way he wrote about me like I belonged to him. He wasn't just watching his son grow up. He thought he was owed something. Then I heard it. A step. Behind me. I turned fast, but the doorway was empty. I didn't wait to see more. I grabbed the file, a handful of photos, and ran. I didn't stop until I was in my car, tires spitting gravel as I peeled back onto the road. I didn't go to the police. Not right away. I went to my mom's. I didn't even knock. I just threw the papers on her kitchen table and asked her why. And she broke down. She told me she was young. 17. Fell for an older man who became possessive, paranoid, terrifying. When she got pregnant, he swore the child would be his, no matter what. She ran. Changed her name. Moved cities. Met my dad, the man who raised me and never once treated me like anything less than his own. She never thought the man would find us. But he did. And instead of dragging me into it, she tried to fight it alone. She thought she won. But he'd just gone underground. And stayed close. Watching. Waiting. I called the police that night. Gave them the files. The cabin location. The photos. Everything. They found the place, but it was empty. No sign of him. Just the board. The mattress. A single page on the desk with 3 words written in block letters. You found me. It's been 6 days since. I don't know where he is. I don't know what he wants now. But I sleep with the lights on. And every night before I go to bed, I close every curtain, double-check every lock, and whisper to myself, he's not my father. Not anymore. He's just a shadow I finally dragged into the light.